عملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آمين يا رب العالمين. Allah Azza wa Jal, when He described that human beings were placed on this earth, He told us that He put a lot of things here for us to enjoy and for us to benefit from so we can become grateful to Him. He even complained that He put so many things here for us to live well with. وَجَعَلْنَا لَكُمْ فِيهَا مَعَايِشْ. And then He said, قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ. How little you show gratitude. But one of the realities of the Quran is that we were not sent to this earth to stay here forever. And that we are going to be, there's another life that all of us have to live. Just like we are living this life, there's another life we have to live. And when we start living that life, this life is going to feel like a day. Every problem, I mean, you think about, every single day we think about things that happened that were bad in the past, or we think about troubles that are coming ahead of us in the future that are stressing us out. Anxiety, fear, the fear of the unknown, concerns about all kinds of things. And yet, when we come back before Allah, this entire life, it doesn't matter if you lived for a week or you lived for 100 years, it wouldn't matter. All of it will feel like we just stayed here for a single day. And on top of all of that, Allah even describes this entire life of ours as la'ib. That is just a game. It's just a game. It's just like a play. And the idea of a play being that you're just entertaining yourself for a little bit, but the real thing happens, work happens after the play is over. So this next life that you and I have to prepare for, that Allah made this life into a very tiny seed, but the actual tree that grows from it is that next life that's coming. And it's so easy for you and me to forget that next life. We don't think about it every day. We're thinking about work, we're thinking about health, we're thinking about money, we're thinking about family relations, we're thinking about all of these things. And the thing that we forget is this next life that's coming ahead of us. And if we did think about that, then all of the other things we're dealing with, the way we think about them would change. Not that those things aren't important. Your work is important, health is important, family is important, but the way you think about them, and the way you and I deal with them, and the way we carry ourselves, and what we make into a big deal, and what's manageable, what's okay. You know, if we don't have the akhirah in mind, then a small problem can feel like the biggest problem in the world. It could become like the end of the world. But if you have the akhirah in mind, it's not that big of a deal. I'll give you an example, just to put things in perspective. Imagine somebody's late for work, and they can't find their socks. And for those 5 minutes, the socks are the biggest problem in the universe for that person. Oh my God, I'm getting late, this is ridiculous, I'm going to get fired, all these problems. And they have no idea that outside, there's been news that there's a tsunami coming, and 3 neighborhoods have already drowned, and he's literally 5-6 minutes away from being drowned himself. If he doesn't look outside, the biggest problem is I can't find my socks. If he looks outside, he realizes there's a much bigger problem that'll make you forget socks, shoes, food, nothing else matters. Everything disappeared. Every other concern disappeared. Because there's something much bigger coming, something far more important coming, that makes you lose, the sight of, you realize how petty, how small these problems were compared to a much bigger problem. And it's not just about problems. I'm not just reminding you and me of Hellfire, but also of Jannah. Sometimes we work towards things in this life. We really hope we can accomplish something. And if we get it, we're going to feel like we're successful. Man, if I just graduate, if I just get this job, if I just save this much money, if I can just have this much in the bank, if I can just put this much down, if I can just get that house, if I can just get this car, we have a list in our head of things we want to get or things we want to accomplish in the worldly sense. And we're working towards that, and that's okay. But if you compare what you're going to get and what I'm going to get by working towards these things, and at the expense of losing sight of something so much bigger than Allah is offering, so much bigger. And what unfortunately happens is, people think that either you want to be a person who takes care of this life or the next life. That's not our religion. Allah Azza wa Jal taught us, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. We ask Allah to give us beautiful things in this life and in the next life together. What that means is, you pursue this life in a way that takes care of this life while at the same time building your next life. While at the same time, you're doing two birds with one stone. And that's really what Allah Azza wa Jal has done. It's a profoundly beautiful religion in that when you go and earn, for example, a halal income, that's an act of worship. Or when you take care of your family, which is expensive, it's an act of worship. Or when you're with your wife, it's an act of worship. Or when you're eating permissible food, it's an act of worship. So you're not just worshiping Allah when you're praying or when you're going to Hajj, but even when you're living your life within those guidelines, that's also a form of worship. That's also you and I building and investing into our next life. But what I wanted to do in this khutbah today is remind myself of a very powerful scene that Allah describes of Judgment Day. And actually this is after Judgment Day. This is at the point where some people are inside hell, may Allah protect us from hell, and some people are inside heaven. So the decision's already been made, people are where they are. Okay? And this scene is of someone who made it into heaven. So they're already in Jannah now, and now the party's begun, and they're being treated. And so there's a long description here, but I'll start from the part that I want to emphasize in this khutbah. And so فَأَقْبَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. They start meeting with each other. Hey, wow, you made it too. And they're hanging out with each other, and they're asking each other questions. So how was it for you? Man, Judgment Day, that was scary stuff, right? And they're having all kinds of conversations. Not only about each other and asking about each other. Where's your mansion? Did you try this yet? Did you have this food yet? I can't believe we made it. But they're also having conversations about what they used to have, the trouble they used to have back in this life. إِنَّا كُنَّا قَبْلُ فِي أَهْلِنَا مُشْفِقِينَ. In another surah, they're talking to each other and they say, man, we used to have so much trouble in our family. Some of our loved ones gave us such a hard time. We used to be so difficult. Oh, man. And they're having this conversation in heaven. Remembering, man, remember that time? فَمَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا. Allah did us such a huge favor, and He protected us. Anyway, so these people are having this conversation with each other, asking about each other, and one of them, he looks around at all these familiar faces, and he says, قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ إِنِّي كَانَ لِي قَرِينٌ. One of them said, I used to have a friend. He's remembering some friend of his that he remembers from this life. Now he's in heaven, he's among new friends, and he's meeting with all kinds of people, but he still remembers this memory of this friend of his. Now the Arabic language has many words for friend. You have Qareen, you have Sadiq, you have Hamim, you have Rafiq, you have, Khalil, you have all these words for friends. But this particular word, Qareen, Qarn actually comes from a rope that they used to tie two camels together with. So these two camels, if you see one, you see the other one. Guaranteed. Qaroon, some Arabs used to use the word Qaroon for the soul of a human being because it's always attached to the body. It's attached to it. This is from, the verb that comes from it is qarrana, to chain something to something. Muqarranina Quran uses when in hellfire people are chained to each other. When this word is used for a friend, Allah is describing the kind of friend you're never seen alone. You're always with them. You're always with them. And it doesn't have to be a friend, by the way. It could be a spouse. It could be a family member. It could be a sibling. It could be someone that no matter what you do, you want them involved. They are chained to you. You are chained to them. There's a kind of healthy or unhealthy codependency. You're always there with each other. You're always associated with each other. You feel incomplete without this other person. And now this one of them is in heaven. And he's like, I had a Qareen. I had someone who I didn't go anywhere without going with him. Or with her. And now they're not here. Where did they go? I don't see them here. So inni kana li qareen. And so then he remembers some of the conversations he used to have with this Qareen back in this life. And he says, يَقُولُ أَإِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُصَدِّقِينَ. Do you seriously believe this stuff? Do you seriously believe in this heaven and hell stuff? But even more than that, sometimes close friends, one of them says, hey man, let's do this. Or somebody close to you, a relationship. And somebody says, let's just do it. It's, what's the big deal? And one of them says, no, we have to fear Allah. It's not right. What we're doing is not right. Allah will ask us about it. We're lying. We're not being honest. We're doing something Allah doesn't want us to do. And the other person says, are you serious right now? Oh, you're like a believer? Seriously? That you're better than everybody else? Are you really going to drop the Islam card on me now? Can you not be religious right now? We're all Muslim, okay? We got it. Allah understands. These kinds of conversations, your Qareen used to kind of talk you into, just do it, man. Why are you making a big deal? Why are you even making a big deal out of this? It's okay to, and if you try to remind that close friend of yours, no, but Judgment Day. Right, Judgment Day. Okay, you want to give the khutbah? It's not Friday. Okay? So you hear this kind of response. And he remembers those kinds of conversations. And he literally says, he used to say to me, are you seriously, confirming, or are you seriously believing all this stuff? أَإِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُصَدِّقِينَ أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا إِنَّا لَمَدِينُونَ. Yes, yes, I know. When we are going to be reduced to bones and decayed dust, then we're going to be raised again, and everything we did is going to get asked about. Got it. I heard the khutbah about Judgment Day too. Thank you very much. I know, I know. You know, I'm Muslim too, you know. And the other side of it is somebody who had a Qareen, who maybe one of them turned towards Allah. It happens among friends. It happens among married couples that they were not religious before, and one of them, the husband, decides to turn back to God. Or the wife decides that she's going to start praying, and the other one doesn't understand it. Like, what are you doing? Why can't we go to that party? Why are you dressed like that? Why can't you dress like you normally used to dress? Why do I have to walk around with you looking like this? And she says, I don't want Allah to ask me. Oh, right, yeah, because we're going to get asked about going to weddings. Thanks. Thanks for ruining everything. And so they have to deal with that. And this person gets to heaven, and he's reminding themselves of these difficult conversations that he used to have. And then he asks all these people that are sitting in this new company of Jannah, he says, هَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُطَّلِعُونَ? Would you like to find out what happened to him? Would you like to inquire? Nobody else cares. It's his friend. So people keep drinking their drink and eating their food and asking other questions. And he says, so nobody else is wondering about this? Am I the only one who knows about him? I'm the only one who's asking? So he asked Allah. فَطَّلَعَ. So he sought to find out. Now the thing about Jannah, heaven, is that you get whatever you ask. You ask anything, Allah will give it. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسُكُمْ. You will have for yourselves whatever you desire. So he desires that he wants to see his friend, that he can't find. And you can already guess from the kinds of questions his friend used to ask, he didn't make it to heaven. And now he wants to see his friend. But to see his friend, Allah will have to show him a picture of hell. So Allah describes, فَرَآهُ فِي سَوَاءِ الْجَحِيمِ. It is as if a window is opened in heaven, and he can look inside, and he can see his friend, or his Qareen, his associate, this person of his, in the middle of hell. In the middle of the roaring flame of hell. Jahim actually comes from juhum, which is when the pupils of a lion dilate before it's about to eat you up. That's actually called juhum. And when the fire sees its prey and it gets exaggerated, it gets aggressive, that's when it's called jahim. So he's looking at the roaring flame and he's seeing his friend, he or she, in the middle of it. In the middle of it. Now, this is a person you cared about your whole life. So you would imagine the moment you see them, you say, oh my God, can I help you? Can I get you out of there? I have to help you. None of that happens. This person sees their friend and says, قَالَ تَاللَّهِ. He says, I swear to God. I swear by Allah. And tallahi is different from wallahi. The Arabs from thousands of years ago, when they swore by anything, they said wallahi. But and they would say wallahi even for casual things. Like wallahi, I'm so hungry, I need some chicken right now. No problem. They would say wallahi, no problem. But tallahi is used when you're shocked. Tallahi is used in extreme cases. So it's like it's wallahi on steroids, is what tallahi is. And so he says, tallahi, I swear to God, in kitta la turdin. It is as if you almost made me fall off the cliff too. Man, I came so close to sticking with you all the time that when you're going into the wrong direction, because I was tied to you with a rope, I was tempted to go with you. Man, that was close. So instead of worrying about how he's doing, the first thought that comes in your mind is, man, you almost got me too, bro. You almost had me. And the word turdin, irda, is used when someone is pushed off a cliff. You almost pushed me off the cliff with you. Imagine if you're roped to somebody and they fall off a cliff, you're going to get yanked down with them. That's his first comment. Then he says, لَوْلَا نِعْمَةُ رَبِّي لَكُنْتُ مِنَ الْمُحْضَرِينَ. Had it not been for the great luxury and favor of Allah, I would have been among that group of people on Judgment Day that had to present their explanations. Muhdareen, ihdar, when you have to stand up, stand before Allah and explain every one of your deeds. You know what that's telling us? The people of heaven, when they present their book of deeds to Allah, you know what Allah Azza wa Jal describes? فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسَبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا. Allah will give an easy audit. Easy checking. Like they'll turn to page 75. Hey, I think there's a Hajj here. Could you please give me credit for that one? And the angel was, no, we get it. It's okay. You can go. They're not going to go item by item for the people who go into heaven. But the people who go into hell, people who are in trouble, they start getting, so what happened on this day? What were you doing at 3 a.m.? What was this? Who were you with? What were you talking about? What did you text? What did you say? What did you do? What did you eat? What did you drink? And the Prophet ﷺ would describe, إِنَّهُ مَنْ سُئِلَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَقَدْ هَلَكَ. The person who starts getting interrogated on Judgment Day has been destroyed. So this guy's in heaven, he sees his friend, and he says, man, I was almost in the list of people who have to stand and explain themselves. Thank Allah, I was from those who Allah went easy on, and He gave them an easy hisab. And it would have been because of you that I would have been on the wrong list. Min al-muhdareen. And then he doesn't want to see any more of that hell. Please close that window. I got my wish. Thank you very much. And he's in heaven, right? He's in Jannah. But the shock of seeing hell, even for those few moments, was so powerful that this person, when that window closed, before this window opened, they were in heaven. After this window closed, they're still in heaven. But they can't believe it. It's like they just got here. It's like all the luxuries of heaven disappeared for a moment, and it's like they just got here. And they say, أَفَمَا نَحْنُ بِمَيِّتِينَ. We're really not going to die anymore? Seriously, we're okay now? إِلَّا مَوْتَتَنَا الْأُولَى وَمَا نَحْنُ بِمُعَذَّبِينَ. And we're not, except that first death we already had, and no more torture, right? No more torture? Nobody talks like that in Jannah, do they? Nobody gets to Jannah and says, we're not going to get tortured, right? A few minutes ago, he was hanging out with his friends, sharing drinks, asking about how life used to be. But when he got even a little glimpse of hell, and he came back to heaven, all he can think about is getting over the trauma of seeing what he just saw, even in heaven. And he's saying, we're not going to get punished anymore, right? إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. And listen to these words. This is the last part of this khutbah. This person now in heaven says, إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. This is the great success. He didn't call the drinks and the company and the food and the mansions and all that great stuff. He didn't call that success. You know what he called great success? Escaping a terrible friend who was leading him down a dark path. Not becoming of those who have to be presented on Judgment Day and have to explain themselves. Man, I escaped that? Whew, that's the biggest success. إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. No more death, no more punishment, I'll take it. I wanted to share this with you because every one of us in this life have two kinds of Qareen. Give me a minute, I'll finish up. Two kinds of Qareen. One kind of Qareen is a devil. It's a shaitan. We can't see him. He's there all the time. He's done a PhD on you. He studies you. He knows when you're the weakest. He knows exactly what your temper is like, what your temptations are like, what your weaknesses are like. And he knows exactly when to whisper to you when you are in your weakest moments because he has studied his enemy. You know how in sports, opposing teams, they study the other team's strategy? This guy is one devil assigned to you. He's your Qareen. So at Qaf, he'll be described as a Qareen. This guy is with you your entire life. Your entire life. No psychologist has you figured out like this Qareen does. And his job is to push you to do the wrong thing all the time. All the time. All the time. And when he succeeds, Judgment Day will come and this Qareen will say to Allah, رَبَّنَا مَا أَطْغَيْتُهُ وَلَكِنْ كَانَ فِي ضَلَالٍ بَعِيدٍ. I didn't make him do it. He was lost. He's confused himself. That's one kind of Qareen. But every one of us in this life also has another opportunity of Qareens, human Qareen. And they can be good or bad. That's up to us. Who did we decide to tie ourselves to? That their opinion becomes our opinion. Their influence becomes something we obey. When they ask us to do something, we just do it. We don't think about the consequences. We're afraid to say, Allah, I know you want me to do this, but Allah doesn't. No, I'm not going to say that because they'll get upset. You're okay with making Allah upset, not okay with making them upset. That's a Qareen too. And that's the kind of Qareen that's helping you and me get pushed off a cliff. That's them, and they may not even know it. They may not even realize it. They're falling off a cliff and they don't see it. And when you open your eyes and say, hey, come on, let's wake up. We can't do this. They say, no, you shut your eyes also. Let me sleep and you fall asleep too. Let's fall off the cliff together. You have to figure out, and I have to figure out, who is that Qareen in our life. And we don't have to hate them. You don't listen to this khutbah and say, man, I just realized you're my Qareen, bro. and I ain't talking to you ever again. Just watch this video and this is what I think of you. No, no, no. Don't do that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is the devil is the devil. Human beings aren't necessarily devils. They're not necessarily evil. Maybe they don't realize they're playing that role. Maybe they're so lost themselves. Maybe they're listening to their invisible Qareen so much that they're actually hypnotized. And your job is to lovingly try to pull them. And if they're not willing to budge, then you have to learn to cut that rope. You can't get dragged. You can't put yourself. Because we have to be the kind of people that make it into heaven. And I pray we don't have to ask about a Qareen who ended up in hell. But if there was such a case, we have to be able to say, Ya Allah, thank Allah, I cut that rope before you jumped off the cliff. I'm glad I cut those ties. And this is the time to cut those ties, not then. This is the time. Or this is the time to fix those things. Find the courage to say what's wrong, even to the people that are closest to you. Because you're afraid of making them upset, and you end up, and I end up, disobeying Allah. That's okay. Making them upset is okay. Making Allah upset is not okay. Then who are we fearing? Truly, how do we say that we fear no one but Allah? How do we get to say that? And we're afraid of somebody else's feelings towards us. It's okay to be offensive for the sake of Allah. It's okay to hurt somebody's feelings and speak the truth. You don't have to say it in hurtful ways, but speaking the truth will hurt some people's feelings. And that's okay. Because their feelings are worth less to you, and Allah's pleasure with you is worth more to you. And by the way, even their feeling being hurt might be doing them a favor. Maybe after their feelings being hurt, maybe hours from then, weeks from then, months from then, maybe their conscience will wake up. Maybe they'll say, man, I was mad at you for what you said, but I'm glad you said it. I thought about it later. It could happen. So we have to have the courage to be people of tawasi bil haqq. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Those two things go hand in hand. So I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal grants us good Qareen in this life. And Allah Azza wa Jal gives us the strength to fight the Qareen, that is the devil, that is alongside us.